As a child, little Frank didn't have many books. Everything was precious, even a loaf of bread. He also remembers sleeping in the same bed as his three brothers and being bitten by fleas.
McCourt was also teased by other kids for being smart, even though his schooling finished at 13. He made an effort to achieve higher than the other kids in his grade.
Frank was diagnosed with typhoid fever when he was young. He stayed in the hospital for 3.5 months. He lived next to a place where people in the town would empty their waste buckets. That's how he got typhoid fever.
Frank and his family grew up in Limerick, Ireland.
I remember a loaf of bread that was precious because it was so little. My mother would bring home what they called the Vienna loaf. I remember one particular loaf of bread, and we were so hungry, I can still taste it. So poverty does make things precious. It turns everything into jewelry.
Frank's dream was to be free like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. His mother was great at telling stories, and Frank loved to listen to her tell stories about movies she watched at the theater.
His favorite authors were the ones that understood poverty. He was also very frustrated with his education when he went to college because he felt behind on his studies.
He moved to America when he was 19 and tried to fit in so much that he used an American accent. As much as he tried, he still was discriminated for being Irish. He also couldn't find a job because of his race. His dream of coming to America was to have a nice job behind a desk, have a few kids, and go to Mass every week.
The minute I open my mouth and they'd say, "Oh, you're Irish," suddenly I'm labelled. I wasn't a human being. In Ireland, I was just a low-class type. But here I'm a low-class Irish type, an Irish low-class type. So I didn't know, somehow I had to deal with it. Oh, you're...
Mr. McCourt became a postman at the age of 14 because his family had little money to support all of them. He was in the United States Army for 2 years and was drafted to Germany. He became a teacher for inner-city teens in New York at McKee High School.
After retirement, he always knew he wanted to be a writer, but the Saturday Evening Post gave him the push he needed to start his career. When Frank became a teacher, the first day he was thrown into a room of teens that he described as species from another world. He learned that he could not be frustrated by his students. He also had to work things out with them when he became a teacher. Mr. McCourt taught his kids to think for themselves.
The kids he taught at McKee High School scared him and exhausted him. Finally, he decided to not be afraid and enjoy himself at school. His students always encouraged him to write a book every summer, but he didn't have the materials. He taught for 30 years, and the day he retired was one of the most satisfying. Angela's Ashes. This book was Mr. McCourt's way of remembering his mother and the struggles of holding their family together. He also tells a story about his alcoholic father. It was published in 1996, and it won the Pulitzer Prize for Biography and Autobiography in 1997.
This picks up pieces of Angela's Ashes, starting where the last book left off. It explains his time in the U.S. Army and first time in New York. Tiz explains the experiences of the discrimination against Irish in New York and all over America. Also, it includes his family customs and leaving his wife and daughter. This book was published in 1999.
Teacher Man. Mr. McCourt published this book in 2005. He explains his experiences teaching inner-city kids of New York. He taught his students to take responsibility for their own learning. In addition to these 3 books, he wrote 5 others.
Everybody says, follow your dream, or Joseph Campbell would say, follow your bliss. You have to. If it's deep enough and authentic and profound and genuine, that's where you have to go. If you want to put on the collar of a clergyman, go and put it on. If you want to be a barefooted monk in the Himalayas, that's what you have to do. If you want to be a housewife, that's what you have to do. Because nature, I found out eventually why I was put on this earth. I was put on this earth to write.
If there's any place better than America, maybe it's heaven. Inspiring words from Frank McCourt.